Welcome, everybody. I'm Lady.
And I'm Alana.
And this is Spookery. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to this most joyous conspiracy theory episode. I'm sure if you've clicked on this episode and you've seen that title, you're just like, can't wait for that.
And I don't know what the title is.
Alana does not know what the title is yet, which is kind of exciting, but also kind of terrifying.
Oh, gosh. I'm ready for whatever this roller coaster is. And like you said, it's like standing in line for a ride, but you don't know what the ride is.
It's just a queue. You're actually at a grocery store.
Right? And you're just like, we'll get there eventually. And someone's like, what's the ride? And they're like, this is the ride.
Yippee! Anyway, welcome to the line of the grocery store, everybody. I'll be your host today. I'm going to take us on this journey. Aisle 2 has all the toothpaste, and that's all you need. That's all you need. Trust me. All right. Well, no, in all seriousness, guys, welcome to my very first conspiracy theory. It's our second conspiracy theory of Spookery ever, which is kind of a big deal. You know, just kind of a big deal. What can I say?
It is.
Alana, I have given you many a teaser over the several episodes we have recorded on and off mic, and I feel like this is the time. Would you like to try and guess what today's episode is?
Okay, so you've said that you've gone back pretty far in history for this, right?
I have, yes.
So I feel like it's got to be something pretty big, pretty massive.
Mm-hmm. You could say it's quite big.
Is it the Illuminati?
That is such a good guess. It is not the Illuminati. That is...
Shoot, dang.
Well, ain't that just the way?
Ain't that just the way?
No, the Illuminati is the Illuminati is a fantastic guess. It is on my sheet, but in a weird way, I do not count the Illuminati as a conspiracy theory. It's so on my list, I think I actually have it as a cult.
Okay,
because that's just how my brain like processes things. I think my entire sheet, like, it has like two categories. It has like main category and subcategory, and I think the main category is cult, and then the subcategory is conspiracy theory ? And I truthfully, I don't know that much about the Illuminati, but it is on my list, and I will cover it, or maybe you'll cover it in the future. But that is not what we are covering today. But it is a fantastic guess.
Man, so if it's not the Illuminati, I'm at a loss. What are we actually covering then? You said it was still big. What is it?
It's big. Okay, so much like I don't classify the Illuminati as a conspiracy theory, I don't think most people would consider this a conspiracy theory, but it is.
God, it's the Muffin Man all over again, isn't it?
It's I'm covering the Muffin Man again. No. So, today we are going to be covering the Titanic.
As the just like in the Titanic, like
yes,
the boat?
Just the boat. Yes, we are going to be covering the Titanic. We're going to be covering the ship. We're going to be covering the company that owns it. We're going to be covering many years before, and we will be covering many years after. It, like I said, it's a big one because it's in the name. The Titanic. It's Titanic
big.
means
yeah,
big.
It's
Yeah,
huge. People they're like, it's a Titanic-sized problem when they're talking about a big problem.
There is, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
You gave me a lot of hints, and I was just blind to all of them.
I was actually convinced I gave it away. I think one of our conversations, like I said, like, this case is like, it's kind of related to a case we did in the first season, and you were like, is it related to Bermuda Triangle? And I literally like hung up that call and I like started crying. Like, she knows what we're covering. I've given it away. Like, what's the point in hiding things anymore?
And little did you know, I had not a clue. Not a single clue.
Not a clue. No. So I'm very happy that you didn't know. I'm kind of weirdly enough, both of our conspiracies have nautical themed and are in the Atlantic. So what's up with the Atlantic? Let's talk about that.
The Atlantic's got some splaining to do. Okay.
There's a lot of weird shit happening in the Atlantic. Man. So we are going to be So this episode is just called the Titanic, but in my head, I've called this the complete history of the Titanic. And as my dad would say, this is the abridged history of the White Star Line. So we are going deep. There's a lot of conspiracy theories about the Titanic. You know, what did it sink? Did it not sink? Was there an iceberg? Was it actually a giant fire that did everything? Did the Titanic snap like a glow stick, or did it crack like an egg? We don't know. We'll cover that more. Stay tuned next week for next episode of Titanic.
Oh, gosh. Well, my bet is definitely crack like a glow stick, for sure.
You think, yeah. You know, that's a good theory. We'll talk about it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're not there yet. Because what do I like more than anything else in the world?
Context. She's my context queen.
I am the context queen, and I have covered 200 years of context for your listening pleasure.
Oh, man, I am so excited because I don't know a single conspiracy theory about the Titanic, like truly, other than like, I guess, like you said, did it not sink? Was the Titanic even real? Was it just a ploy? Who knows?
Yep. It was a government cover up for their massive iceberg farming ploy. But more on that on the actual
Hasbro built this giant toy boat and Traveler's Insurance, covered it, and it was downhill from there.
Ma'am, don't read ahead. don't read ahead. Yes. So, this is full disclaimer, dear listener. I like context. I am the context queen. I love history. I love explaining things. I went pretty hard on the context of this episode. We're covering, as I said, 200 years of it. I genuinely thought this was going to be my next Bonnie and Clyde. I was looking at it going, I can get that very succinctly into a 3-parter, no problem. And then I got to about where the part 3 would start, and I'm not at the Titanic yet, and I started crying. So bear with me. It's going to be a long one. I'm not willing to commit to how many parts this will be. It is script length double the size of Bonnie and Clyde. So it's a long haul, and we might get through it faster than I expected, or we might not. But just trust the process. It's going to be a really good one. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's also going to be a bummer. So this is my trigger warning for this episode. There's no trigger warnings for the Titanic. We're not covering anything too dicey. But this is going to be a bummer. We are covering not just the Titanic, but several other collisions throughout history. These are tragic accidents. People have died. It is going to be a bummer. So especially if you guys are listening in the future when all of the parts are out, maybe take breaks between chunks of context, chunks of history, especially when we get to the actual Titanic itself. Please take like a palate cleanser, take a break, watch something cute and fluffy. Don't live in this world as long as I did. It will affect you. Otherwise, guys, strap in, put your seatbelts on, put your captain's hat on, hold that steering wheel real tight, because we're just gonna go flying. We got no time to waste. We got so much to cover, and we don't have a lot of time.
Keep your hands and legs inside the vehicle at all times, ladies and gentlemen. Let us get this party started.
And then allow me to present to you the complete history of the Titanic. So, before we even get to the infamous ship, the infamous collision, we're going to talk about the company that owns the Titanic. So, the White Star Line was founded in Liverpool, England, in 1845 by John Pilkington and Henry Wilson.
Wow, 1845. So we are going back.
We're going back. We are so far back. We are just under 100 years from the Titanic.
Wow, in the beginning.
In the beginning, there was a company, and it owned lots of boats, and these boats went places.
Where did they go?
Oh, let me tell you. So, basically, what the White Star Line was really utilized for was for trade routes between the UK and Australia.
Okay.
So, in 1851, Australia went through a massive gold rush. So before this, it was just a penal colony. Pretty much all the people were using this route for were to ship people that they didn't want in England anymore over to Australia.
I was going to say, who's going to Australia in 1845? Like,
Yes.
Who wants to go?
Yes, Australia was created as a penal colony in 1780, so even further back. So actually, we are 100 years into the past. So people are going there. They're either being shipped off because they're going to the penal colony, or they're going to colonize. They're going to see their family. They're just not vibing with England anymore. They're going to Australia.
All right.
Boom, 1851, gold is found in Australia. There was a massive discovery, and everyone was like, please take me there. I would like that.
Yeah.
I would. That would be really good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would like to go there. So
Yes, no more questions,
yes,
please.
so suddenly the trade routes to Australia quite lucrative. People were like, hey, get on my boat. My boat is better. We will take you to Australia and you will only get like scurvy like twice.
Oh, that's a deal. Deal. And there might be gold in my future. It's sold. You can have 3 of my children because I got 8.
And that's going to treat my scurvy if I find gold. So like easy. It literally pays for itself.
Pays for itself. It's a good investment back.
Yeah. So there, as you can imagine, there was a massive amount of immigration to Australia. Population of Australia went from roughly 43,000 to 1.7 million in just 3 years.
That's a huge uptake. Where were they putting all these new people?
Just in the desert.
Just you see any plot of desert, like just help yourself because there's tons of it.
They started filling around the coast, and then when they ran out of room at the coast, they just started coming inland. And let me tell you, they got a little weird. But you know what? It's okay. Australia, we love you.
Yeah, it's true. Now it's a very lovable place.
It is. I adore Australia.
As you can tell, well, I have a lot of cases from Australia.
I think I've been avoiding cases in Australia because you cover so many. I'm like, she's got it. Hey, but here I am, back in Australia. It's my turn.
Let's go.
Let's go. So, before the gold rush, White Star Line was pretty much just, it was getting people over there. It was for trade. It was very transactional. It was very like, just get on the boat. We'll take you there. We'll pick some stuff up. We'll bring it back. We'll drop it off. We'll go back over. It was very like, okay, like just make it so. Now people are asking to go. They're like, okay, we got to make better boats. We got to make it more comfortable for people to go to Australia. It's no longer about cargo.
Yeah.
It's about the people.
The people are the cargo.
The people are the cargo. Remember that. That's important later.
Oh, foreshadowing. I don't like that.
Setting up my conspiracy theories nicely. Thank you so much.
Gosh.
So Pilkington and Wilson, owners of White Star Line, they're telling the press several times their greatest goal is safety. Like they want to make sure people are getting there safely and getting there comfortably. They start hiring bands. They offer different forms of entertainers. They're just like, don't worry, guys. Like not only are you going to be comfortable down to Australia, you're going to be entertained while going to Australia. And
you're going to forget that you had scurvy twice.
Yes, like you're not even going to mind that your legs are falling off. It's fine because, hey, that guy juggles. And like he's juggling while the boat's rocking. It's amazing.
If the boats are rocking, don't come with nothing.
Slight anecdote: if you ever see a juggler on a cruise ship, they are wonderful because like you have no idea what's going to happen at any given moment, and they still catch those balls. It's fantastic.
Man, you're really talking me into this whole trip to Australia thing.
Well, hold on. Let's talk about the logistics first.
Okay.
So this is a long journey. You can imagine a world map. UK and Australia, very far apart. There's like there's 2 continents in the way. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to sail all the way down from Europe around Africa, and then you'd have to take a turn, and then just sail straight for Australia. That's a long way. We're looking at about 13,750 miles, or 22,000 kilometers if you prefer. The journey would take a little longer than 100 days on a good day.
Wow, okay.
Yes. Not only would it take over 100 days, it was a one-way trip. Like, if you wanted to get back, that's 200 days plus. And, like, let me tell you, I don't think you want to be on a boat for 100 days, never mind 200 days.
No, I don't just got 100 days.
The irony is I have been on a boat for 100 days, but, like, do not recommend. It's a lot. That's a lot of boat.
Yeah, but not an 1845 boat for 100 days.
No, I have not been on an 1851 boat for 100 days.
Sorry.
Yes. See, I'm remembering my dates. I've learned, everybody. I've learned.
You're talking to a lady that failed history twice.
Hey, you know, I probably did too. It's fine. So, as you can imagine, a journey that takes 100 days, that's very lucrative. People are going to pay a lot of money to get over there safely, comfortably, and there's a lot of competition to be the best liner that's going to take you down there. So speed and size of your ships was key because you needed to be fast, because people wanted to cut down that 100 days as much as possible, and you wanted a big boat so you could take as many people as possible, because the more butts on seats, the more money you gets to keeps.
That makes sense. That's their motto.
That's what you joke, but that's kind of White Star Line's motto. The more butts on seats, the more money you keeps. Remember that for later.
Oh, God.
So, the rule of thumb was if you could get to Australia fast and comfortably with more passengers, you made more money than your competitors. You could buy them out. So then you have more ships, so you could take more people. It's basically the biggest fish wins.
Yeah, the logic is there.
Yep. So in 1853, White Star Line had 9 ships to her name. She had the Elizabeth, the David Cannon,
Oh.
the Iowa,
Okay.
the Burtpoor,
The Birdpaw.
the Tantivy,
The Tantivy. Oh, I like that one.
the here's the next one I think you're going to love the most. The Jessamine.
The Jessamine. Okay.
Jessamine. She's a fun one.
Oh my gosh.
They had the Fitzjames,
Okay.
the Defence,
The Defense.
and finally, the crown jewel of their fleet, the RMS Taylor.
Oh my gosh, I am stealing this for a D&D group in the future. This is a great fleet name.
I would like to. I'd like to play the Fitzjames personally. I'd like
Oh my
to be the
gosh, they're so
Fitzjames.
good though. Like, man, what a like little gaggle of ships.
Yeah, they were a
That's amazing.
cute little family. But we're not going to talk about 8 of those ships. We're going to be talking about the 9th ship, the crown jewel. Some might say the RMS Taylor.
The RMS Taylor.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Taylor was White Star Line's pride and joy. She was a fully rigged iron clipper ship. So she was a sailboat. All of these boats
Okay.
were sailboats. They were all long, narrow, 2 to 3 to 4 big masts with sails on them. There was no engines on these bad boys. They were wind powered.
Okay.
She was about 230 feet in length. She could carry 4,000 tons of cargo, and she could hold about 650 people, including crew. So, like, pretty big for the time. Pretty big.
Yeah, that was my question. Was the, like you said, capacity, like of not only the actual passengers but the ship size. Wow, 650 people.
Yes. So that
That's a
was
lot.
all people, passengers and crew included. So usually, at least from what I can gather, pretty much the standard is you have 1/3 that's dedicated to crew, and then the 2/3 are dedicated to passengers. So you probably have about 200 crew and about 450 passengers, roughly.
Gotcha. Good.
But we'll get there. So something to keep in mind here. The Taylor was a bit of a rush job. So from the moment she was ordered to her final preparations getting ready for her maiden voyage only took 6 months. So she was put on the water 6 months after she was ordered. Not when she was built, but when she was, when they sent it to the shipyard, go, make this boat for us.
Okay, so I know approximately 0 things about ships, right?
Yes.
And shipbuilding?
Yes.
Approximately 0 things.
That's fine.
Like,
That's okay. You don't have to know
it's
it.
an approximation, but I would say that is not a good idea.
I would agree. That is not a good idea. I would say, I would like my boat to be at least a year old before I get on it for its maiden voyage.
Yeah.
I would like everyone to be 100% certain that this thing can float.
Yeah, has it made it back and forth one time at least? Know that I am not, like you said, even just...
I am not a big maiden voyage kind of gal. I'm not a big inaugural, let's go on the very first journey kind of gal. I think, especially with the White Star Line, I think that's something that we're going to keep in mind. I think.
They don't even do a test one though before the big long one. They don't even hey, can you go across this tiny little river?
No, they do.
Like-
Now, I will say that they do normally. There's normally ship trials where you get certified, but remember, this is in 1853. We're not there yet. This
is the reason why we have those trials now.
Okay, don't read ahead. Anyway. So, she was built in 6 months, and then they were getting her ready for a maiden voyage, and rad turnaround time. They were bam, bam, here's a ship. Really cool.
Oh, God. Oh,
So,
God.
despite the fact that she was incredibly rushed, she was fast. She was real fast. For a wind-powered ship, she was real fast.
Yeah.
She was the largest ship of her time, and she was quite the marvel of engineering. Now, I want you to remember those. She was fast, she was the largest ship of her time, and she was a marvel of engineering.
Sounds like another ship I've heard of.
It's weird, right?
The marketing is almost identical.
It's the same company. Just put it in your hat. Put it in your hat.
I'm gonna sit on that for a little bit.
Yeah, just hold on to that. We're not going to cover that in this part, but hold on to that.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
The other thing to keep in mind with the Taylor is that she did not receive any sea trials before her maiden voyage. She was not tested. It was kind of par for the course at the time. In the 1850s, it was kind of like build boat, set boat, ship boat, sailboat.
Hey, if your customers are dead, they can't complain. So honestly,
yeah,
it's
yeah. So RMS Taylor never sailed in open water before she was put into service. So that's just something to keep in mind for what we're about to get into.
All right. I have a feeling this is gonna end badly.
I don't know what you mean. So, you said that something about this sounds very familiar. Well, here's something else that might sound very familiar. The 19th of January, 1854 was her maiden voyage. route, as planned, was Liverpool to Melbourne. She was carrying 652 people, including crew.
Okay.
As for her crew, she had 71 crewmen on board, so she did not have the third. She only had 71 on board.
And they were 2 people over capacity. This is already really turning out bad.
Yes. Also, only 37 of the crew were trained to be crew.
What? The rest were just guys? They just were like, hey, guy.
Yeah, like, hey, can you look like you can sail a boat? Get on that boat.
Oh my, this is a recipe for disaster. They looked up what's a good recipe for disaster and they followed it to a T.
And out of those 37 that were trained to be crew, 10 of them couldn't speak English.
That's fun. So they're just like miming to each other like what to do. They're just kind of like, yeah.
We have 27 people who could communicate, 10 who could hopefully communicate amongst each other, but not necessarily with the other 27. And then the other 40 are just like, we're just here because we look good. We're like the model crew.
We're just some guys.
We're just some guys.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
So I can't imagine how this could possibly go wrong.
Oh, jeez.
So, first big issue, aside from the crew.
Yeah.
None of her compasses were working.
At what point do you just say, hey, maybe we just wait? Let's just not go.
Now, the thing with broken compasses, it's hard to tell it's a broken compass until you need it.
Yeah, that's fair. Because like you said, otherwise you're just it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
You're not really paying attention when you're at shore.
Yes.
You know where you're at.
Yeah.
What do you need a compass for?
You're just like, we don't need to know where north is because we're at the pier. When you're in open water, it's kind of important. So the reason why her compasses weren't working is that the ship was made of iron. This is, this is brand new technology that we're dealing with. Most ships are not made of iron at this point. They're usually made of wood. Iron ships are newly engineered. They're still kind of working out the kinks, and this ship had not received any sea trials. So if a compass is not adjusted properly on a metal ship, the metal is going to fuck with the compass a little bit. It's gonna go a little haywire. It's not gonna quite point where you think it's gonna point. So the crew, when the maiden voyage began, believed that they were sailing south because the compasses were all pointing south. They were instead sailing west, not towards Australia, which is in the south, but towards Ireland, which is right over there.
Oh.
So
cool.
Yes. So 48 hours into her maiden voyage, with 98 days to go, the Tayleur found herself in very bad weather. So she was in deep fog. She was in the middle of a storm. So visibility is incredibly poor. And they are heading to Ireland, and they don't realize they're heading to Ireland.
This would be a comedy of errors if it weren't so tragic.
That's the White Star line in a nutshell, unfortunately. It's almost funny how bad things go if it wasn't so awful.
Like someone literally couldn't fuck that up so hard if they tried, and yet look at where we are.
Yep. So next issue that the lovely Tayleur was dealing with, her rudder was too small for the size of her ship. So if you don't know anything about boats, the rudder is what you use to turn. So you need...
Oh, so they just weren't going anywhere then.
So you need that to turn. So if your rudder is too small for your ship, your turning circle is not effective. You need a larger rudder to push more water out of the way so you can turn sharper. If your rudder is too small for your ship, your turning circle is going to be a quarter of a mile. You're just it's going to skirt around.
Well, yeah, the solution is to just keep going. You just got to keep going all the way around.
You commit to forward.
Eventually, you'll go back to where you're at.
In the open ocean, that doesn't matter. However, they're not sailing into open ocean. They're sailing into Ireland at the moment. So, bit of a problem.
Jeez.
So, next engineering issue, her rigging was faulty. So, that thing that's keeping her sails up that powers the ship to go forward, that's not working.
So, what part of this boat did work?
Her hopes and dreams. She was watertight. No water was coming into that boat yet.
The juggler was on point. That was the best part of this boat.
No, he was literally on point. He was at ballet shoes. He was on the full tiptoes. He was juggling those balls. Everyone was like, man, that is on point.
Man. Oh my goodness.
So her rigging was not working correctly. The ropes had not been stretched properly. Normally this happens when you're at a sea trial. Now, she didn't have a sea trial. Those ropes were just fastened and they were like, looks like a rig. Love that.
Looks like it works.
So
that's fine.
Her rigging had a lot of slack to it. So if you're pulling that rope trying to get those sails up, you've got to go through quite a lot of rope before those sails start going up.
Jesus.
So,
okay.
difficult to control these sails. They're in a storm, also, as a reminder. They're in the middle of a storm with lots of fog. They can't turn fast, and they can't raise the sails.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine like how that happened on board too. Like you said, they're getting into some fog and they're like, no problem, let's just turn around. And they're like, wait, we can't. And then they're like, okay, we'll just raise the sails so we can at least get through this fast. And then they're like, wait, we can't. And then they're like, okay, I guess we'll all just watch this juggler while we sit here in the fog and just hopefully hit something.
Yeah. Well, hit something that they unfortunately did. So, rocks were sighted, and these were the rocks off the coast of Lambay Island in Ireland, and they were like, we are supposed to be in open water right now, why are there rocks ahead of us? So they immediately dropped the 2 anchors that the Tayleur is equipped with. Both anchor chains broke,
or like maybe like someone just didn't secure them. Can you imagine like they just like go to drop the anchor and they just keep watching it fall and like the rope just goes over with it and the guy like that was supposed to secure it just like looks up with this like little grin on his face like, did I do that?
I mean, you're not quite wrong. So what happened with the anchors is that their chains actually broke. So they released the anchors and they were like, no worries. And then it just went, and the chains just kept going. And they were like, that's a problem.
I literally cannot. Oh
you
my
can't
goodness.
make this shit up. You cannot make this shit up.
I don't think we're legally allowed to call this a boat anymore. This is basically just a raft, right? Like this is a metal raft in the water with way too many people on it.
I like to think of this more as an inverted bathtub more than anything. She's just a wind-powered inverted bathtub at this point. Like there is nothing stopping her. There's nothing turning her. She's going at a speed, and then she's staying at that speed.
That is it. An inverted bathtub at best.
Yes. So pretty much right away, as soon as those rocks were sighted, the Tayleur struck the rocks.
Whoever was on lookout was great. They're like, rocks! And then 3 seconds later, like,
That's so weird you say that. Maybe you should hold on to that for later. It sounds weirdly familiar, that's all I'm saying. Just gonna put that out there. So, pretty much immediately after smashing into the rocks, they're like, no worries, we have lifeboats, boys. The ship was pretty close to the shore. They were sailing into Ireland. Land isn't too far away. They're off the coast of Lambay Island. So they're like, great, we're not too far from land. We'll lower the lifeboats. We'll sail to land. We'll be fine.
Tell me what the problem is with that. Why couldn't that happen? Were there no lifeboats?
So after the first lifeboat there was lifeboats. The first one was loaded. After the first lifeboat was loaded and lowered, it immediately smashed into the rocks as well and was destroyed.
And the people on board?
Unfortunately, did not make it.
Okay.
Yes. So, as I said...
But at least they learned from that, right?
They did learn from this. Every boat collision that we will be discussing in this episode was a learning experience. and that's another thing I really want to hammer down is the White Star Line learned something from every single one of these collisions that we're going to be talking about, but I don't know if they necessarily learned the right lessons.
Okay.
But I'm not reading ahead. We're not there yet.
I'm sorry.
So, thankfully the Taylor's close to land, so they're just like, okay, what we really need to do is we just need to get these people onto these rocks. We gotta get them off the boat. The boat, we are impaled. So we just need to get people off. So they picked their strongest swimmers, and they actually took ropes and swam to the mainland.
And it worked?
It worked. They sailed through fog and a storm. They swam through this with ropes, and they managed to fasten like lifelines, basically, these big tethers.
Man, they just don't make them like they used to.
No.
It's wild.
That's why we bring the 37 of the 71 trained seamen aboard.
Yeah.
So the captain of the ship, Captain Noble, remained on the ship until the last minute, where he made jump attempts to the shore, and other survivors who had made it across with the tethers pulled him to safety.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yes, so...
I held my breath.
So due to the storm, the Tayleur was basically just pulled off of these rocks and dragged out into deeper water, and then, with the massive hole in the side of her from the rocks, filled up with water and just got pulled under the waves.
That's got to be a wild feeling to like just like you said, get on a boat. You're like a day or two in, however long they're in. Mm-hmm. Not that long. They're thinking they're going to be on this for a long day. They're all getting settled in. Before they know it, they are standing on a beach in fog and storm, watching their only form of escape just sink into the ocean.
Yes. No, she didn't sink into the ocean completely right away. So she remained in eyesight with just the tops of her masts and the crow's nest. So you could still see those. They were out in open water, but they were the only things like that told you where that boat was. I mean, that's kind of a grim reminder. Like, that could have been me.
Could have been me.
Could have been me. So survivors alerted the Coast Guard, and they were basically like, guys, we're 48 hours into our voyage, and we have just run aground, and we are in desperate need of help. It would still take 14 hours for help to arrive.
Wow.
So 4 Coast Guard members and one of the surviving passengers returned to the site of the wreck, while the Coast Guard station alerted the actual mainland. So right now they're on the island of Lambay. They're actually alerting like the mainland of Ireland, being like, guys, something really bad happened. Something real bad happened.
Yeah.
When help did arrive, they actually rescued one more person from the boat.
Oh.
So this last survivor was a man named William Vivers, I think is how you say his last name. He had climbed to the top of the mast and was sitting in the crow's nest waiting for help.
Oh my gosh.
Because the boat went down before he could use the ropes as the tethers.
Wow.
He had spent 14 hours up there.
Jeez.
And keep in mind, while he's sitting up there, the boat is slowly going down. So, like, it's not staying stationary. The boat has been steadily sinking.
Gosh, that is literally a sinking feeling. Like, I can only imagine just the hopelessness, like you said, where he's just like, goodness gracious, I really, really hope.
Yes, like, fuck. So, overall, approximately 297 to 380 people died.
Wow.
Of approximately 200 women who were aboard, only 3 survived.
Whoa.
There were 50 children aboard, only 2 survived.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So for the women in particular, a lot of this death is attributed to actually what they were wearing at the time. They were not wearing things designed to be out at sea. They were wearing things for weather, for cold, for wind, but they were heavy, heavy layers. They were skirts, they were bustles, they were just... Then especially the wetter they got, the heavier they got. So when water started rising and they're like, you need to use these ropes and get across, they're just being pulled down and they're getting dragged into the water.
That is so depressing. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. For the children, they were simply not strong enough to swim to shore. Like, the only way you really survived is if you were strong enough to either use those tethers to get across or swim across.
Yeah. And the ocean is freaking fierce. Like you said, you have to have strong muscle to be able to swim in stormy ocean water.
Yeah, this is not even like standard swimming. This is hardcore. Like, you make it or you die. Like, this is terrible, terrible weather.
Jeez. That's just harrowing.
It is. It's awful. So if this is a bummer for you guys, this is it. This is what the Titanic is going to be like on a significantly larger scale. So just keep that in mind. This is why I say take breaks. Take breaks. Yeah. The Tayleur is just the cherry on top, quite literally.
Just pace yourself.
Yeah. So the steamer ship Prince was sent to rescue the survivors, but it did take quite a while for the Prince to navigate the area. It's a storm, it's low visibility, and there's rocks everywhere.
Yeah.
Survivors who made it to the mainland actually had to scale an 80-foot sheer cliff face to get to shelter from the storm, so they weren't just out in the elements, just possibly dying from exposure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't imagine. Like you said, it's like make it up this hill, or we're sorry, you're getting left behind.
Mm-hmm. So the wreck did fall below the waves, and actually the wreckage of the Tayleur wouldn't be recovered until 1959 after the Titanic.
Oh, okay.
This is over 100 years later that they would not find the wreckage of the Titanic, which, is kind of weirdly similar to the Titanic, but
Yeah.
So so there is a memorial to the RMS Tayleur in Ireland. You can go visit it. I think it's in Portrane, I think is how you say it. So yeah, you can visit the memorial for the RMS Tayleur.
Interesting.
So when news broke of the RMS Tayleur sinking, the crew was immediately blamed for negligence.
That makes sense, yeah.
So Captain Noble and his crew were later absolved of any wrongdoing after an official coroner's inquest. Instead, the blame was shifted to the ship's owners, which was Charles Moore and Company, which is the company that owned the RMS Tayleur, who was, I think they were renting it to the White Star Line.
Okay.
They were accused of neglect for allowing the ship to depart on its maiden voyage without compasses being properly installed, without rigging being properly stretched, and for an insufficient rudder.
That also makes sense.
Yep. Noble was also awarded partial blame for not exercising proper perception of his surroundings, which is common practice in low visibility. If you can't see, you've got to, observe your surroundings.
Yeah.
Instead, he put far too much faith in faulty equipment, and that is why the loss of life was so significant.
Jeez, yeah.
The White Star Line was absolved of any wrongdoing. Overall, the major causes of the accident were broken down to the compasses not working and not being properly adjusted. There was actually an absence of some compasses placed along the hull, so there were only a couple of compasses that you could rely on. The Irish sea currents being unusually temperamental that time of year. The wind of the storm pushing the ship unexpectedly sideways and them not being able to discern that they were going sideways. The turning circle from the small rudder that was far too large and made the ship unmaneuverable. Anchor chains breaking when they dropped. The captain had actually been injured right before the voyage and had sustained a head injury. And
we just got this guy with brain damage. He's just leading us to victory.
You know, and the other thing that was attributed to the cause of the accident was actually a lack of life jackets. So back in the day, they were called life belts, and they were basically just wraparounds. There was not enough.
Okay.
So there were enough lifeboats, but there were not enough life jackets. Yes. So, at any rate, loss of the Tayleur was devastating. This was on her maiden voyage too. So White Star Line had actually spent a pretty penny to make, like, with all their hopes and dreams, like, she is going to pioneer the travel from the UK to Australia. Like, she is going to be our crown jewel. And then she sinks on her maiden voyage.
Jeez. Well, and what can you expect? Like you said, they're like, hey, did you do all your checks and balances? They're like, maybe. Wouldn't you like to know?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, did you at least put safety equipment on there? And they're like, some. Yeah.
There was, in fact,
Like-
some safety on there. But was it enough? But was it? And clearly it was not.
Clearly not. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
So, actually, that was a heavy blow for the White Star Line, but they did get a slight insurance payout because all of their boats were insured. So, with the insurance money, they ordered several more, slightly better built ships that could navigate the fleet. The first new addition was the Red Jacket, which was actually the real crown jewel of the White Star Line's fleet at the time, and very efficient at the Australia run.
Okay.
So, because of the Red Jacket's success, this afforded the company several more ships, including the Emma, the Shalima, the Sultana, and the White Star.
Oh, okay.
So, now the fleet's starting to get a little beefy. She's like, okay, we got some boats. We have about 15 boats. We're feeling really good. We're feeling confident. We're making this run from Australia. Why don't we do a couple more routes and see how they go? So they started adding new routes from Liverpool to Victoria,
Okay.
which is in British Columbia. So they're going from England to Canada because, whoa, there's a gold rush happening over there. And people want to go
Wow.
over there.
Wow.
That's really weird. What's with all these gold rushes? Why are there so much gold?
Is that the next conspiracy theory?
Maybe.
Why is there so much gold?
Why is there so much gold?
Why is that the shiny rock that we chose as a species?
You know, we just like shiny rocks.
Yeah, but why that shiny rock? Why is that the best one?
People just gravitate to yellow. Yellow makes you hungry.
Is that a fact?
That is a fact.
Is that
That's
a rock
what-
fact?
That's a rock fact. It's a shiny rock fact, actually. It's color theory. That's why McDonald's chose yellow and red, and actually why most fast food joints have yellow and red in their color patterns is because the combination of yellow and red means I'm hungry and I'm hungry fast. So it attracts people. Like if you see a fast food sign, there's usually yellow and red. And it goes, I'm hungry now, and I would like to eat.
Huh. I am learning so much.
I don't know if that applies to gold, but that is a color theory. And that's just a color theory.
And that's a color theory.
Right. So, with all that said, the White Star Line is surviving, but they're not doing super well. In 1856, the company actually lost its postal contracts, so that means that they could no longer carry mail aboard their ships. So,
What?
a lot of the boat suffixes, they're like RMS, that means Royal Mail Ship, which means that they carried post from their destinations as well as passengers.
Yeah. How do you lose that?
It's like a paid license. You pay a certain amount of money and then you get qualified as a postal ship. They could no longer afford to pay for this postal contract, so all of their ships lost the RMS in their bare name. They just became SS if they were a steamship, or an HS or an MS. But they were just ships now. That was it.
Just some ships.
Yes. White Star Line also did not have the best track record. Other than the Tayleur, a couple of their other ships had wrecked by bumping into other ships or had gone missing. They just disappeared. And some other ones were just decommissioned after a couple of years of service because they were unreliable. So, not to be discouraged, White Star Line, our boy Wilson, he has got his eyes on the future. He's like, guys, the trick to this is really we just got to build larger, faster, more luxurious ships. That's what's going to save the company. We spend money, we make money. It's going to be fantastic.
Man, I get behind this guy. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
He's like, guys, I have solved the future. His business partner, Pilkington, however, was like, nah, homie, I'm out.
But Pilkington doesn't know what he's talking about. His last name is Pilkington.
Yeah, Pilkington, he was calling it. He was putting his cards down. He was not feeling the White Star Line. I think the Tayleur really like hit him hard. With the additional ships not doing super great, he was like, I'm not built for this business. Shipping is just not for me. I'm gonna do something else. Maybe I'll go into a fertilizer company. Who knows?
just gonna try a different revenue.
You know, maybe he made another shipping company and that went great, and then he made a Ouija board company. Who knows? Pilkington, he's out of the picture. He's gone. It's just our boy Wilson.
All right.
Now, Wilson was not a fan of being a one-man band. He was like, look, man, I do best when I banter. I need at least another person to talk to really feel this out. So he brought his brother-in-law, James Chambers, into the White Star Company as his new partner in crime.
Oh, okay.
And so this worked for a little while. Mm-hmm. At the time, the White Star Line's biggest rivals were companies called the Black Ball Line and the Eagle Line. Those two rival companies merged in 1858. Why did I say 1558? Wow.
Going back in time.
I thought I had my dates correct. I do not. So those two rival companies merged in 1858, which, good news, bad news, now they only had one rival. But problem, now that rival is twice the size and has a big fleet.
Man.
So this is also around the time that the White Star Line starts to look at other routes. Because, Australia's looking pretty good. But South Africa, that's got a potential gold rush happening, maybe. We don't know.
Yeah.
We've got Canada in the works. New Zealand, which is slightly further than Australia. If we can get there fast, that's golden.
Yeah.
In 1863, the White Star Line acquired its very first steamship, the SS Royal Standard.
Ooh. Setting the standard for royal ships.
Yes, so steamships were a big deal. These ships did not rely on sails. A lot of steamships still had them at this time, but these ships had their own engines, which means that, if the sails failed, if there was no wind, if you were stranded in open sea and you were just the only thing that's powering your ship ain't coming, you had a backup generator and you could just pop that bad boy in, you could still keep going forward. They were much, much more reliable, sort of.
Ooh.
So steamships are notoriously expensive. The technology is not quite finessed at this point. We're in 1863. The technology's a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
These are expensive. This is a big money sink. It's like pay a lot of money, hope you get a lot of money back. Unfortunately, the profit return for this ship was not quite enough to keep the White Star Line floating.
Oh, no.
So, a year later, White Star Line is sucked into a merger with one of its own rivals. And they became the Liverpool, Melbourne, and Oriental Steam Nation Navigation Company Limited.
Okay, that's too many names.
That's a lot of names.
That's too many names.
That's a lot of names. They were the Liverpool, Melbourne, and Oriental Steam Navigation Company Limited. And I'm not going to abbreviate that for you because we're not going to be here for very long.
Thank gosh.
So Wilson continued to borrow more and more money for bigger and better steamships. He was like, the steamships are the way to go. They're the bigger, they're the better, they're the faster, they're the more comfy ships. This is the future. And he kind of was right, but he just was a little bit too early.
Yeah, and he's spending way too much money. You got to spend money to make money, but you can't spend all your money because you have to still make money, dude. That's the whole game.
Mm-hmm. So he had a lot of faith in the Royal Standard. He had ordered his second steamship, the Sirius. His second in command, his brother-in-law, James Chambers, was like, Wilson, what are you doing? We don't have enough money for this.
Oh, dear Lord.
Why have we ordered a second steamship? The first one hasn't even paid for itself yet. And he was like, trust me. It's fine. Wilson's just like, you're worrying too much, Chambers. And Chambers is like, okay, I'm out.
Oh, jeez.
So Chambers leaves the company very shortly after this.
Jeez, I'm starting to suspect it's not his partners that are the problem.
Maybe. And so Wilson's like, I'm not a one-man band. I like the banter. I need a person to hop off of. And he was replaced, and James Chambers was immediately replaced by a man named John Cunningham. Cunningham. So nothing was working. The White Star Black Ball Eagle Company was just not succeeding. The Liverpool, Melbourne, Oriental Steam Navigation Company Limited was not working. And pretty much they just kind of focused all of those routes that they were expanding to. They were just like, stay in Liverpool, we'll stay in our lane. Like, we're hunkered down because this is not working. So shortly after this, the bank that the White Star Line is borrowing all its money from to build its brand new steamships, the Royal Bank of Liverpool, it collapsed in 1887.
Wait, so is that good or bad for these people that have money, that had borrowed money from them?
This is real bad.
Real bad? But if you borrowed money, that means you don't have to pay it back to the bank. It collapsed. It's gone.
Yeah, but that means you're covering other people's debts at that point because the bank is out of money. So it fell under in 1887, and suddenly the White Star Line was left with a debt of £527,000, or £57,200,000 today.
Jesus.
Yeah, they declared bankruptcy shortly after.
Yeah, you just like declare it a shit show and just walk away. Wash your hands.
You put your hands up. You're like, you know what? Maybe this steamship business is not for me. We're not even done building our second steamship yet. It's just, I'm outie. So Wilson puts the company up for sale.
Jeez.
So, 18th of January, 1868, a man named Thomas Henry Ismay bought the White Star Line for £1,000.
Wow. Okay.
That's about £103,000 today.
All right. That's a steal.
He was a real bargain. For the bankruptcy that they had to declare with the £527,000, he bought it for £1,000. So he was just like, all right.
Might as well.
My company. So Thomas Ismay was born January 7th, 1837. He's a big player in this because we get his birthday. And he was 31 at the time of purchase.
Okay.
He was married to a woman named Margaret Bruce. They had 3 sons. One of them will be important later.
Ooh. Okay.
Some sources mention that he might have had daughters as well, but I can't find anything on them. So I think that's just par for the times. Women were kind of ignored. Your sons had wives and they had no daughters.
Yeah.
So Ismay kind of saw Wilson's vision and he was like, this man's onto something.
Yeah.
I think you might be right. The steamships might be the future. Build more iron ships. Put some steam engines on those bad boys. This might be the way to do it. So Ismay was also the director of another line at the time, the National Line, which was technically a rival, but it was a completely different line of business. So the White Star Line kind of just became like a sister company of the National Line.
Okay.
So Ismay saw the White Star Line kind of like basically treading water, doing doggy paddle, and he was like, I like this. This line?
Yeah.
It's a good line. So Ismay moved the company headquarters to Liverpool, and he was fully intending to run exclusively the North Atlantic route from Liverpool to New York City.
Okay.
Once the headquarters was established, once everything got moved over, the paperwork was signed, sealed, delivered, Ismay was approached by a man named Gustav Christian Schwab.
Oh, okay.
And he was a very influential Liverpudlian merchant.
Yeah, I mean, if he approached me, I would listen to what he had to say.
He's got 3 names. Like, he's a genius or he's a serial killer. We know this.
It could be both.
Could be both. We don't know. I did not dig into Gustav. So Schwab invited Ismay to a game of billiards with him and his nephew, a man named Gustav Wilhelm Wolf. And I assume that this game went off without a hitch because during the game, Schwab offered to finance the White Star Line. He was like, "Hey, I see this little baby that you got, this little nest.
Yeah.
I see great potential in it, like you see great potential in it, and I would like to help finance this.
Wow.
If you only use ships built by my nephew's company."
Seems sus.
So the nephew's company, Gustav Wilhelm Wolf's company, was a shipbuilder company called Harland and Wolff. And Ismay was like, hell yeah, dude, that sounds rad. You're not only going to supply me the boats, but you're going to pay for them too? Like, I am not turning that down.
Yeah, who doesn't love a bit of nepotism, man? It's always in the best interest.
Yep, I mean, nepotism is the part for the course. It's the times.
Yeah, it's do this for my son. If it's not for my son, it's for your son.
Yeah, pretty much. So this deal was pretty simple. Harland and Wolff would build all the White Star Line ships at a fixed cost with, percentage. They wouldn't pay for everything, but, White Star Line basically paid like a very, very, very small sum. And then they would also never build a ship for a White Star Line competitor. So Harland and Wolff shipbuilders would exclusively build for White Star Line. Papa Gustav would pay for everything. Schwab would pay for everything. And then, so White Star Line has its boats. It markets Harland and Wolff, so they would only do to sister lines like the National Line. They would make those as well. And then White Star Line back in business, baby.
Wow, just like that, bada bing, bada boom, back on the water. Let's go. How did it go the second time around?
Pretty well.
Ooh.
So Harland and Wolff received their first order on the 30th of July in 1869. And they began construction on what Ismay would consider the next big thing.
Ooh, the next big thing. TM.
Is the next big thing. So at around this time, a man named William Imrie joined the company. He was the son of an influential ship owner as well, because it's nepotism, baby. Everyone's related to a ship owner in this business. Imrie showed a lot of promise in taking over the family business, and he was also called the Prince of Shipbuilders, Prince of Ship Owners. So
Prince of Ship Owners.
it was, influential.
Wow. That's man, being a man back then. Prince of Ship Owners. My whole life is just laid out for me.
Money is just in my blood. It's just in my blood.
People just give me ships because I am the Prince of Ship Owners.
Like, people, Ismay's the same. That people are like, we'll make you boats. You just have to, sail them. And he's like, you're giving me boats, you're paying for boats, and I get to keep the boats. Like, okay, they're my boats.
Yeah. Wow. Why would he do anything else?
And it made sense to somebody. Maybe not to me, but what do I know? I don't work on boats.
I don't work on boats.
I don't work on boats. So now Imrie is aboard. The White Star Line needed a new management company. So the White Star Line, we're still getting the paperwork finalized, but it needs a parent company to kind of take care of all of the fendoogly bits, the bureaucracy, let's say.
Yeah.
So they started a new firm called Ismay, Imrie and Company, because it was run by Imrie and Ismay.
Okay.
Weird.
Wow.
Yeah, and now the two of them are running the show. They're running the White Star Line. Harland and Wolff is building these ships, and things are really starting to turn around.
Shipping out.
Yeah. So Ismay and Imrie had their sights fully locked on Liverpool, New York route. They're like, that's where the money's at. North Atlantic, the route, it is profitable. It is mostly influential white people trying to go from England to New York to very, very influential white cities. That's where, if we can secure our foothold in that route, we are golden.
Yeah.
Competition was fierce.
I'm sure, yeah, like you said, that's the creme de la crop of the consumers base that everyone is trying to market to at the time.
Yes, they're basically Australia, not really quite the profitable thing. The gold's all run out down there. Canada, the gold's all run out over there. It's really about business trade now from England to New York. There are already many more influential companies already fighting for this.
Yeah, okay. How'd they get their foot in the door?
So, in 1870, when they were attempting this, there were already 4 lines dominating this route. They were basically the big 4 at the time. So they had the Guyon route, the Guyon line, I think is how you say it, the Inman line, the National line, which of course is the sister line, so they're competing with themselves basically.
Okay.
And the White Star Line's bitter rival to the very end, the Cunard line.
The Cunard.
The Cunard.
Oh gosh.
I will be referring to them as Cunard from here on out because they're an ongoing presence in this story.
They have a good villain last night. I can hear, some it sounds like a dad in his car. Ooh, Cunard!
Cunard! Yeah. At the bow of every White Star Line ship, you've got one very grisly old man shaking his fist in the air. Cunard!
Cunard! They hire that guy specifically.
Yes, so Cunard is the White Star Line's they are their bitter rivals to the end.
Okay.
So, Ismay and Imrie weren't too worried about breaking into the route. They had the Belfast's best shipbuilders, Harland and Wolff, on their side, and they were funding the ships. So, they don't have that much money sink to get in.
Yeah.
Which is great. In 1870, the White Star Line officially debuted their pride and joy, their first ship ever built by Harland and Wolff. So this is the beginning of the Oceanic class of ocean liners. And this is where the White Star Line introduced their signature. You may not know this, but ship lines tend to have a naming convention or signature that helps tell you what ship belongs to where.
Okay.
Sometimes they're visual clues to help them along. But those you can probably tell what ship belongs to which company based on what it's called.
Okay.
So the White Star Line starts naming their ships with the suffix "ic."
Okay.
If you use the Oceanic, Titanic, think that along those lines. This is where the White Star Line starts introducing this. This is how you can tell it's a White Star Line ship. They end with "ic."
They end with "ic."
It's not it's not a permanent rule. Not all of their ships had it. Usually, if they bought another ship from a different line, it came with its own name. It's like, it's adopting that shelter puppy again. They have their names already.
Gotcha.
And it's a lot of paperwork to change a name. It's possible, but it is a lot of paperwork and it's a lot of money. Whereas if you build a line from scratch, they all had ick. So all of these Harlander Wolf ships, they were all named with ick.
Interesting.
Cunard, ironically enough, always ended their ships with ia.
Oh.
So you could always pick them out too.
Like IKEA.
No. Incorrect. Let me think.
I threw you off. I'm sorry.
You did. I was like, what? Because my brain was like, ia. No, it is not same. IA. Now I really wish they had a ship called the IKEA. It's so much better than all of our ick ships.
It is. Yeah. If you had to pick between a ship ending in ick or ia, I'd pick ia.
Yeah. Well, that's hence the bitter rivalry. Their names were also very similar. So Cunard always ended their ships with IA. White Star Line is always ending in ick. You actually see this with modern cruise ships too. So like Royal Caribbean always uses of the seas in their names of things. So they have like treasure of the sea, icon of the sea. That's their naming convention. Norwegian Cruise Line always starts their name with Norwegian. So you have like Norwegian Star, Norwegian Joy, Norwegian.
How original.
Yeah, But like that's how you can tell. It's a level of own branding. Like when you see that ship pulling into harbor, you should be able to visually recognize, oh, that ship belongs to that. There's also usually like visual indicators, like the shape of your funnels or your engines or like the way that you paint your ships. But the naming convention is usually like the first standout, especially if it's like plastered on the side of the ship.
That makes sense.
Yes. Anyways, White Star Line introduced its brand new SS Oceanic in August of 1870.
Ooh, sparkly.
She was real sparkly. She was a nice ship. So she was about 3,707 ton steamliner. So she was a steamship, very hot off the presses from Harlander Wolf, and she was designed exclusively for the Atlantic crossings.
Ooh, she was a pretty sparkly ship ready for, like you said, those rich passengers.
So she measured at about 420 feet, or 128 meters long. So she was double the size of the Tayleur.
Dang.
And she was about 41 feet wide, or 13 meters.
How many passengers?
Hold on, I'm not there yet. Don't read ahead. So even though she was a steamship, she was still fitted with sails, since steam engines at the time weren't quite powerful enough to do the trip on their own. Okay. So usually the engines were a backup system. The sails were still the primary route of power, but steamships were all equipped with that boiler engine. And that way, they could get across, they were not wind reliant, and they worked in tandem, kind of like a hybrid car.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Oceanic was White Star Line's very first North Atlantic run ship as well. And her bitter rival, the ship she was designed to fight, was Cunard's Calabria.
Calabria. Oh, that sounds like a Hogwarts spell. Cunard's Calabria.
Cunard's Calabria. It's the font, or unless is it Calabria? I've always read it as Calabria. That was her rival. So the Oceanic and the Calabria are the bitter rivals in this chain. So, problem here was that White Star Line failed to shine on its inaugural voyage.
Oh no, what happened?
So on March 1871, she only carried 64 passengers.
Oh no!
While the Calabria, which was already a well-established boat in the line, was carrying 300.
Okay.
So, bit of a difference there.
Dang, that's a huge letdown. I can't imagine, like you said, like having this huge, like grand opening event, and you're just like da 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 da, and then you open it up expecting all these people, and there's just like a classroom, like 2 classrooms full of people basically, just like coming on board, and you're just kind of like,
yeah, it's like she got 61 people, and you're like, where's the rest? And then the Calabria's like sailing by with the 300, going, hello, hi.
Man, and those 61 people, like you said, are just going, man, I should have bought tickets for the other boat.
I should have got Calabria. Like, man, it's like, look how cool she is with her 300 people.
Dang, could have been them.
Yes, could have been them. On top of that, she also failed her maiden voyage.
No!
Not because of any horrible disaster, but because her bearings overheated. So she actually she got to like unsafe temperatures, and she actually had to physically turn around and go back to Liverpool. She never made it across the Atlantic on her maiden voyage.
All right, yeah, I'd be pretty disappointed if I'd be like, can I get my ticket back, please?
Yeah, those 64 people were like, guys, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's no.
Not great. No. It's not great.
No.
So she sailed back to Belfast and immediately repaired.
Okay.
And her voyage restarted on the 16th of March.
Dang.
So when she finally arrived in New York, like a month late, 50,000 people were waiting to take a look at her. And they were quite impressed with what they saw. There was this brand new, sparkly, shiny boat. They were like, you know what? She's actually quite nice to look at. The Calabria is getting a little older, and here is the Oceanic. And she's kind of like, that's a pretty boat. She's a real pretty boat.
Okay.
So the second ship that was made by Harland and Wolff was the Oceanic's identical twin sister, the Atlantic.
The Atlantic. Wow.
The Atlantic, yes. So the only real difference between these two ships were their engines. So the engines that Oceanic had were made by Maudslay, Sons and Field, whereas the Atlantic's engines were made by a more powerful G. Forrester and Co., so that, they didn't fail. She was launched in November of 1870 and had her maiden voyage in June of 1871. So, she was put on the water, tested very, very vigorously, and then had her maiden voyage.
As she should be.
Yes. At the point that the Atlantic was launched, the Oceanic had actually really started picking up success. So, she was going from Liverpool to New York pretty consistently.
I love that.
So the Atlantic, our next ship, is followed shortly after by the Baltic in 1871, the Republic in 1871, and then two larger ships, the Adriatic and the Celtic.
Nice. Okay. Oh, cool.
So the Adriatic and Celtic were about 3,888 tons. They were about 452 feet long, or 138 meters long.
Wow.
And about the same width as the Atlantic and the Oceanic.
Wow.
Despite their larger size, the Adriatic and Celtic could only take 850 passengers, whereas the elder four could carry almost 1,200.
Wow. Okay.
So
I was wondering when you were going to tell me how many people they carried.
I knew it was on here because we're getting close to that next disaster.
I want to know how many people.
They could take 1,200.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, and compared to what the Tayleur could take, with what
it's double the amount of people almost.
Yeah, 650. So it's major.
Major.
So the White Star Line basically operated with a two-class system in mind. So there were two classes that you could fly. Think of like airplanes. You have like business class, economy. You have that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
With the White Star Line, they had saloon class, which was upper class, and then you had steerage class, which was lower class.
Jeez, they could have made them sound like at least like somewhat comparable, but like that they sound one's so much better than the other.
Well, I mean that was also the name convention for the time. So every ship had steerage class, and I think saloon class was actually the White Star exclusive. But every class had a steerage class, and then you had like an upper class.
I see.
Yeah, pretty much the two-tier system. You had the high-paying customers who got their own wings, their own sections, and then you had the steerage class was like you're just paying for just hopping aboard and getting off.
Got you. I see.
Yes. So the first four Oceanic class ships, so that would be the Oceanic, the Atlantic, the Baltic, and the Republic, they were designed to carry about 166 first class or saloon class, and about 1,000 steerage class.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was basically like we can fill her with 1,000 low-paying people and 200 first class, give first class more space, give the lower class less space. That's profit. That was profit.
Yeah. Do we have pictures of what these classes look like, what the rooms look like for each one?
I don't have the rooms, but I do have pictures of the ships, especially because this is like the era of early photography as well. So like getting pictures of these early ships is tough. Never mind the inside. A lot of them are just like, here is boat in harbor. Yeah. We'll never see it again.
Yeah, they're like you said, it's just like, wow, that's a boat. Wow. Okay, great. Got a picture.
Yeah. And then sometimes they would take photos of these boats. It took a long while to figure out which boat it was. Because like the names are pretty small on the side of the ship, and if they're taking the photo from a wages away, a lot of the photos for some of these ships, if you've got the Oceanic and the Atlantic, some of them like they don't have photos of ones. They just say it would look like this. This is the Oceanic, but the Atlantic looks just like this.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So they actually had a lot of that with the Titanic and her sisters. A couple of those photos, like they were like, this is what the Titanic should have looked like in some of those. Like this is her sister.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So now they've got these 6 beautiful Harland and Wolff ships. They're all state of the art. They're like fully lined. They've got 2 large ones, 4 slightly smaller ones. They are just designed to take over the North Atlantic route.
Wow.
And they're ready to show Cunard what for them. And I'll tell you what, Cunard didn't see this coming.
No. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Do they do it? Do they beat them?
Well, we're not there yet.
Oh, dang.
So things are really starting to work out for White Star Line, and with all the success in the North Atlantic, the White Star Line begins looking at other routes. They're like, ooh, okay, finally, we got our foot in the door of the most profitable line. We've kind of cut back on Australia a little bit. We've cut back on Canada a little bit. We've cut back on all of those a little bit. Where can we start spreading out again? Where can we start, seeing where people want to go?
Yeah.
And they started looking at routes specifically through the Suez Canal.
Okay.
So they bought 2 ships that were currently being manufactured by Harland & Wolff, but not originally for White Star Line. And this was the Asiatic and the Tropic.
Okay.
So these ships were designed exclusively to travel through the Suez Canal. Suez Canal turned out to be massively unprofitable. They were like, there's no money down here, I'm so sorry.
Dang, we tried.
We tried. So they also tried their hand at the South American route, which they pulled the Republic out of the very profitable North Atlantic route. They actually pulled the Republic out of there to go down to South America, and they sent over 2 brand new ships as well, the Gaelic and the Belgic. The Belgic. So the Republic, the Gaelic, and the Belgic, as well as the Asiatic and the Tropic, are now doing the South American route. Not profitable. So now we have all these boats, and we only have so much route, and the routes aren't working. So they did maintain the South American route, but they really just left it to the lesser, smaller ships, and they put the Republic and all of the better ships way back up to the North Atlantic because at least they were making money.
Yeah, geez. Too much boat, not enough route.
Now, we have gotten to about the 20-year mark after their first major disaster of the Tayleur, and I think it's about time for another tragedy.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, as things often do for the White Star Line, it's time for tragedy. We're ringing that tragedy bell. And this one was a bit of a doozy. And this actually affected one of the oceanic lines.
Oh, okay.
So this next disaster revolves around the Atlantic. So the second eldest. So the 20th of March, 1873, on her 19th voyage. So still pretty early in her run.
Yeah.
The Atlantic departed Liverpool with 952 people on board.
Jeez. Oh, man, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, she had 103 crew members, 835 passengers, and 14 stowaways.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so final destination was New York. That was her standard fare. She'd done this route many, many, many times. Unfortunately, a bit like the Tayleur, terrible storm hit. It was low visibility. Water was terrible. It was just choppy weather. It was not looking great.
Yeah.
So the Atlantic was hit with a gale force headwind and was basically reduced to a crawl. So normally most of these ships go top speed across the Atlantic. The Atlantic now was going like barely anything. And I think I actually have it here. Her top speed, the Atlantic's top speed, was 14 knots, which is about 16 miles per hour, or 26 kilometers per hour, which is slower than I initially thought. And on average, her maintainable speed was about 12 knots, which is 14 miles an hour.
Wow.
At this point, though, she was barely going like 1 knot.
Yeah, she's just chugging along, barely.
Yeah, so Atlantic is a steamship. She has the engine, but she's also fitted with sails. Steamships are powered by coal, so now that she's got a headwind coming, so she can't use her sails. That's going to buck her all the way back to Liverpool. She's exclusively relying on her engine at this point. And normally that's fine, but they were on the 11th day of their journey at this point, and her captain James William, became concerned that they were going to run out of coal before they ever made it to New York.
Did no one check these things? No one did the math?
Well, hold on, we're not there yet. Don't read ahead. So, what sucks about this reality is he's right to be worried because, you need coal, especially if that's your only method of transportation. You need that. You need to make sure that's checked. And there's a lot of reliance on the sails as well as the engine. You're not really designed to have one used exclusively. What sucks about this is that the Atlantic did have enough coal.
What?
She had plenty of coal to make it to New York from where she was standing, but the ship's engineer, John Foxley, had been deliberately underreporting the reserves to make it more economical in their use. And this was actually standard fare at the time. This is not on Foxley at all. This was just something that people did. The quartermasters and the engineers, they deliberately undersold what was on board so that the captains weren't wasteful, because it was so easy to just be like, just chuck more coal in there, just chuck more coal in there. So if they underreported the numbers, that way the captain would be like, okay, we'll be efficient with our coal. That way you saved money with refueling. So it was economical. It was a standard practice at the time. and it was pretty much done just as like a form of caution. But unfortunately, in this case, it was done, and it was causing concerns that could have very easily been waved aside.
Oh, dear Lord. Just the communication, simple communication.
It's also to the point now where the captain is also not reporting that he's concerned about the coal reserves. He was, but he wasn't saying that to his crew because he's trying to keep morale up. He's like, guys, we're going to make it to New York. But he's sitting in there in his bunker just being like, I don't know if we're going to make it. Like, we don't know.
Oh, God. Oh, gosh.
So Foxy reports to Captain Williams that the Atlantic has 129 tons of fuel remaining, and the Atlantic would need at least 140 tons to reach New York. They have 2 days to go before they get to New York as well. So they're just like, we're just shy. The winds are gonna take us out to the sea. We're gonna get stranded.
But they're not. Oh, dear.
Yeah. So
Gosh, this is, again, almost a comedy of errors if it weren't so tragic and people's lives are at stake.
Yes. So Captain's like, fuck, dude, never gonna make it. We've gotta redirect. We've gotta find a shorter destination that we can just dock to, refuel, and then we can make it back to New York with just a little bit of delay. So, Captain Williams, great idea. New York's about 460 miles away at this point, but Halifax in Canada is only 170 miles away, and there's plenty of coal to get there. Plenty. Halifax was actually a common place to dock when coal reserves dropped dangerously low, so it's literally the perfect place to refuel, regather. We'll just say, sorry everyone, sorry for the delay. We're just gonna get some more coal, and then we'll go straight to New York. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Oh gosh, but it still went wrong.
Well, the problem is, Halifax. The problem with Halifax is that the White Star Line had never been to Halifax before. It was not their docking station. They had no idea what Halifax looked like, how their harbors were laid out. They had no idea how to approach this harbor. It was not really a White Star Line thing, never mind an Atlantic thing. This was a general White Star Line, like we'd have no idea what we're doing.
Oh, gosh. That's not possibly going to go wrong. A ship that's going in completely blind to this, it's not at all reminiscent of what happened originally, the Tayleur.
Yep, they're blind both like geographically, and it's a storm. They've got low visibility. The wind is unpredictable. They have no idea they can't even see what's in front of them.
This time it's going to be different, though.
This will be fine.
I have be different.
Complete faith.
Yeah.
So, March 31st, 1873. The Atlantic made her way through the storm at 12 knots, which is, her maintained top speed.
Jesus.
Heading straight for Halifax Harbor. Visibility is low, wind is fierce, and unbeknownst to the Atlantic, the wind had actually knocked her 12.5 miles west of Halifax.
No.
So they were not even heading to Halifax. They were heading a little out of the way.
No. This is so sad. And they weren't gonna make it fine. This was totally unnecessary.
I know. That's this in a nutshell. Everything would have been fine, but some decisions were made.
And just, man, when you panic, don't panic.
Don't panic. Everything's going to be fine.
Take some deep breaths, communicate with your crew.
Yes. So Captain Williams had actually retired for the night. He was like, I'm go bobos. I'm so tired. I need to sleep. Don't worry, though. I've put my best man, second mate Henry Ismay Metcalf, in control. He's going to watch the ship. Everything's going to be great.
Gosh, I don't trust that guy with my life.
Yeah, so the captain goes to bed because he's like, guys, wake me up when we get close to Halifax. I'll help bring us in, but I've been up all day. I'm real tired. Second mate Metcalf, he's going to be great. He'll get us there. I'll get us in. It's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd think because nobody actually knew what Halifax Harbor looked like, you'd think there would be like extra caution approaching Halifax Harbor.
Yeah,
and they were like, you'd think you'd be like, hey, I don't really know. It's like when you're driving to a new area for the first time, you've got your navigation up, you feel like you're kind of driving slow, you turn your radio down so you can see better.
Yes.
It's like you think that you'd be, a little bit more cautious, but the Atlantic was like, nah, we got this. We're like we're the best in the business. We're better than that.
Turn that music up. Get every juggler out right now.
They're like, fucking Cunard, like, do they think they can do this? We're better than them. We've got the best ship in the fleet. We can dock in Halifax with our eyes closed, boys. And
my gosh.
I feel like at this point, maybe they did close their eyes.
God.
Yes.
Secondhand cringe so hard.
The Atlantic did not take soundings, which is basically measuring the depth of the water around you.
Why?
This is all before sonar as well, so they don't use sonar. They're using primitive methods of just I think it's like a click box almost. It's not a sonar, but it's basically just like you just do a very, very bare bones, like how deep's the water? Deep enough. There was also no lookout posted on this particular eve because they were feeling so confident.
They're like,
blinded
no,
themselves, boys.
Guys in the crew nest, go take your night off. Go watch the jugglers. They're great. 10 out of 10.
Love those White Star Line jugglers. They just don't make them like they used to.
God, I'm just so disappointed.
Yeah,
in this crew.
They also did not reduce speed at all. They were like, we have bare bones coal left, except for all that coal over there. Keep shoveling it into the engines, boys. We're gonna make it. We do
literally full steam ahead.
Pretty much. And they were they're like, we're gonna drift into the harbor. Basically, we're just gonna anchor down, handbrake. We're gonna swing right in. It's gonna be beautiful. Everyone's gonna clap. Promotions all around, boys. Let's go home.
God, imagine those Sea of Thieves anchor turns that like were so like glitchy and just sent you flying over the fucking like whole island. And that's what they were hoping for, like, but it just wasn't Sea of Thieves physics, and that was where they, went wrong.
That's where it went wrong. That's exactly what went wrong.
He was playing too much Sea of Thieves.
He was. Back in 1873.
Oh my gosh. What were they actually thinking though? Seriously. Like that is just so many things. So avoidable. And they were just like, nope, no lookouts. Full steam ahead. Like, we don't need people looking. We don't need to know about the water. Literally all of these details, irrelevant, useless details. I do not need them. Get them out of my face.
Yep. I should take all that information that you just said, put it in your hat for later.
It's all just white noise. I don't even care about it.
Put it in your hat later. We'll get there. We'll get there. So, on top of, physically blinding themselves and going at full speed, they failed to spot the Sambro Lighthouse, which is basically like, hey guys, like Halifax Harbor, like way over here, watch out for the rocks, it's really fucked up. They didn't see it.
No, that's the disco light.
That's 12 miles away to the east, so they did not see it.
Jesus.
So, like, basically, they're looking for this lighthouse. They're like, we think there's a lighthouse that, like, signals where Halifax Harbor is. They didn't really see it because they're 12 miles off of their destination. And, like, the crew who are, like, on their way are like, weird. But I'm not worried about it. It's probably just because it's storming outside.
Oh, my God.
So, the ship's quartermaster, Robert Thomas, was the only person on board who had a vague notion of what Halifax looked like. And he was like, don't see lighthouse. Kind of sus about that. Maybe I should like flag that to the helm that we're going full speed and I don't see a lighthouse and I don't know where we are. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the bridge. So he went and flagged his concerns to the temporary Captain Metcalf and fourth mate John Brown, and they were like, dude, Canada just looks weird as fuck. Like, we're fine.
Yeah.
You've never been to Canada. We've never been to Canada. We don't know what the fuck we're looking for. Just because you think, like, Canadian lighthouses don't look like real lighthouses, let's be honest.
That's the problem, yeah.
Yeah, they're just like,
you've never seen a Canadian lighthouse.
They're just like, it's not that the lighthouse isn't there, it's just a Canadian lighthouse, and we don't know what those look like.
Yeah, duh, no, different.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. So they dismissed the concerns of our lovely quartermaster and were like, full steam ahead, baby. We're gonna fucking drift right into that harbor.
Wow.
So,
and I feel like someone's gonna be like, hey, is that a dock? And then like 3 seconds later, they're just gonna like be hitting something.
So at 3:15 in the morning, on April 1st, 1870, because this is all a joke to me, the lookouts that were finally posted saw sea foam breaking behind the waves, and they're like,
hey, that ain't good.
That usually means that it's hitting something. That means that there's something there. Hey, we shouldn't hit that. And they sounded the alarm. A little too late.
Yep.
So they immediately threw our steam engine into reverse. They started turning, and they attempted a they attempted that really cool braking handbrake turn. They're like, the time is here. The dock is here. We're gonna just stop and skid right next to it. It's gonna be really, really cool. It wasn't. It was not enough. So the Atlantic struck an underwater rock just off the coast of Mars Island, Nova Scotia.
Wow.
So the Atlantic was going nearly full speed, and the collision with the rock forced the ship into a very sudden and complete stop. So it just went bam.
That is absolutely terrifying. Can you imagine the jolt that the crew felt being on that ship? Like you said, going, like they're just like charted, and all of a sudden it just stops and they're like, are we good? I don't know. And then it just probably starts.
You probably hear the massive crunch of your boat hitting the rock as well. Just the chunk, and then you feel the whole boat just stop. I'm sure everyone's being thrown around a little bit. Like, they're not going like super fast, like in terms of what we're thinking about in cars. Like, they're only going 16 miles an hour.
But on a boat, though, the force.
From 16 miles an hour to 0 with that amount of tonnage behind you, that's force.
Yeah.
So the sudden complete stop jammed the ship straight onto the rocks. So now we've got a massive rock impaling the Atlantic.
That's what you want.
Yep, we are now impaled. So remember now, they're in a storm, and it's low visibility. And so the waves that are smashing up against these rocks, which is what the lookouts spotted, they're pushing and pulling the Atlantic onto and off of the rocks repeatedly.
Oh, that's so good.
So they're basically accordioning the Atlantic into the rocks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, her iron hull was completely shattered.
God, that's true. The ocean is... You don't fuck with the ocean.
You don't fuck with the ocean. Don't fuck with the ocean, it won't fuck with you.
No, man. Ugh.
Yeah. So after several attempts, on and off, according onto these rocks, eventually the tide was strong enough, it pulled the Atlantic right off the rocks and threw her back into open water with a massive hole in her side.
Oh, that's not where you want to be with the hole in your side.
No, you do not want to be in the middle of the ocean with a hole in your side. Just putting it out there. Don't do it, not even once.
Not even once. Mm-mm.
So the ship immediately began filling with ocean water and then began tilting to the starboard, which is right for those of you who don't speak ship.
That's me.
You don't speak ship? Here's a fun tidbit for you. For those of you who don't speak ship, so the easy way to remember starboard and port, which is left and right, port and left both have 4 letters. That means that they are the same. Starboard and right have more letters. That means that they are the same.
I like that. That is a really good way to remember it.
That's all you need. And then front is forward and back is aft.
I love it.
Easy peasy.
Where's the poop deck?
Somewhere else.
That's all I needed to know.
But yeah, so if you ever are concerned about what starboard and port is left, 4 letters. Starboard right, more than 4 letters.
Wow.
That's the way to remember.
I wish everything in life had just an easy hack to remember it like that. That was beautiful.
You'll probably find that a fair bit does, but we just haven't figured it out yet.
That's true. Everyone has their one piece of knowledge and they're all hoarding it to themselves.
They are.
Greedy bastards, little gremlins.
Me, however, I am here to impart all ship facts to you. Here, have my ship facts. I have so many. I have at least 4 parts of ship facts to give you.
Man, we're getting rock facts, ship facts, all of it.
All of it's happening right here, baby. This is what you come to Spookery to learn. And
You
we're
get it all.
learning.
We're
learning. So at the time, the Atlantic was equipped with about 10 lifeboats, which does not sound like enough.
No.
All 10 were immediately loaded and lowered. And then they were immediately pulled out to sea by the storm, or they were smashed on the rocks that they just got pulled off of.
So it didn't even matter. Okay.
It did not matter. The lifeboats supplied no form of safety in this particular situation.
Jesus. When are we going to learn?
We will not learn. The Atlantic hit a shallow seabed and remained partially above water. So she was kind of stable, still filling with water. She was on a shallow seabed. But basically, she's at a weird angle, and the passengers are just sort of climbing the hull to stay out of the water.
That is so sad and depressing. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this was the bummer you were talking about earlier. Okay.
This is there is nothing fun about the amount of shipwrecks that we are going to be talking about.
Man, that really is just, the sea is so scary, and at night, and when things are just going wrong, that is like, I can't think of anything scarier, actually. Like, the ocean is just so scary, and at night, it is just a bottomless pit of black.
It's quite beautiful when you feel safe.
Yeah,
like I've spent many a night sitting at the very top of a ship, just kind of like looking at the vastness of it, and it's just like you're like floating in like an inky black pool, and there is something very calming about it, especially because you can see all the stars. The only lights you've got are the lights coming off of the ship, like nothing for miles. It's very like it's I don't know, like it's like a blanket of night almost. But maybe it's because I'm not afraid of the ocean that I never felt like I was alone in the world.
That's fair, and I think that's so true for a lot of things, right? Like, the beauty really comes from that sense of like safety with it, right? Like, the nature can be terrifying, and we have this wonderful, position to be able to view it from a safe seat most of the time. But when things go wrong, it's scary.
Yeah, you do not fuck with the ocean. The ocean will not fuck with you. So let that be a lesson. So, yes, so the passengers are currently clinging to the only parts of the boat that are above water, but they are constantly being just overwhelmed by waves, by wind. So if they're clinging also to like a ship that's tilting to the side. So if their strength gives out at all, that they've been claimed by the ocean. You are never seeing that person again. So those of them that were able to just hold off the waves, being beaten by these waves constantly, they were mostly defeated by exposure. So it's the winds hitting you after being soaked. It's cold at night. We're in Canada in April. This is the same time period around the Titanic sank. That Titanic sank in April. So it's cold out. It's freezing. There's a storm. You're being hit by rain. You're being hit by wind. It's just miserable.
Ugh, that miserable is the right word for that. That is like truly like when hell freezes over, you know, like that is literally like the definition of it. Like you think it couldn't get worse, and there that is.
Yeah, so those that weren't claimed by the waves had to hold on for dear life. If exposure didn't claim you, it basically sapped your strength and you fell into the ocean anyway. So it was just a mill at this point. It was dreadful.
And not even just that, but think about it, right? What gets you through these horrible situations is hope, right? But like, what hope do you have in this situation? What are you holding on for? Well, who's coming to get you?
Yeah, there's a really awful report with this. There are survivors from the ship. And they would often report that there were masses of just corpses in the water around the ship. And there were so many that they actually thought that they were cargo initially because of how they were clumped together.
God, I'm sure that, like you said, that's just something that sticks with you. And the horrible realization in that moment of just being like, oh my gosh, look at my surroundings. And then you realize just what you're actually surrounded by.
Yeah.
Harrowing.
It's just dreadful. So a good number of people who did survive owed their lives to third mate Cornelius Brady, quartermaster John Speakman, and quartermaster Edward Owens. So these men swam to shore with ropes. Does this sound familiar?
Jeez, okay.
Yes, so thankfully, and I say very thankfully, at this point that the Atlantic stopped in the water on the shallow seabed, they were very close to land. So these three guys got ropes, they swam off the Atlantic to Canada and fastened these safety lines onto the shore.
Wow.
So by 6 a.m., April 1st, 5 shore tethers had been tied, and they had saved a majority of the remaining passengers and crew through this method. People were just, once again, they were just scurrying and coming across.
Yeah. Wow.
Other survivors also swam to safety. They saw the first 3 go out, and they were like, sink or swim, let's go.
Yeah.
Third mate Brady made contact with the residents of a small nearby fishing village. And from there, 3 boats made their way to come save those on the shore. As well as the few remaining that were still clinging to the Atlantic.
Wow.
Rescue from there took 6 hours until they had made sure that they had saved all the remaining who were alive.
That's crazy. I can't imagine, like you said, just that check of just kind of being like, is anyone left? Like, hello?
Mm-hmm. And when finding those piles of cargo in quotations.
Yeah.
And then just realizing what they are, it's just dreadful.
People you would probably been sitting next to, you know, for a while on the ship, people you knew, family, friends, like that's just has to be insane.
Yeah.
Unimaginable.
So, in total, of the 952 on board the Atlantic, 535 died.
Wow, okay, that's not a good survival rate.
No, there were only 429 survivors. In this particular tragedy, all women and children on board perished, except for one 12-year-old boy.
Again, though, like you literally said it earlier, like the reason that you survived in these situations was due to the strength that you had. And even the one child that survived was, you know, a male. And it really...
Yeah. A 12-year-old boy named John Hindley, and I think he had some level of experience with swimming.
Yeah.
Or he was carried. And he got very, very lucky that he was carried. But, like, it's once again, you know, these women are wearing heavy clothing. They're not designed to get wet. Mm-hmm. It's layers upon layers of clothing. You know, children, they're not strong enough to swim on their own. It's just, yeah. And, of course, the lifeboats, which was their lifeline to these people to survive. Probably a lot of the women and children were loaded onto the lifeboats, and they immediately crashed into the rocks or were swept away into the ocean.
Jesus. Yeah,
So,
that is a horrific thought. And hopefully, like you said, the suffering was just not a long thing.
No, that's all you can hope for. You hope it was quick.
Yep.
So, of the crew, 10 crew members perished, leaving 131 surviving crew. For a very long time, this particular crash was the worst civilian loss of life in the North Atlantic until 1898.
Wow. I'm sure, like you said, that just rang out. I mean, that probably affected so many people. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people are on board, and just imagine God, yeah, just bad news spreads fast. So I'm sure that got back to shore and people just heard about that, and it probably changed a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of like the silver lining to most disasters is that something is usually done after disasters. All laws are written in blood. So someone has to hurt, someone has to bleed, someone has to die or suffer for something to change. And that is the unfortunate way that we as humans work. And I can only hope that at the end of this, a lot of change did come.
Yeah, that's the only, like you said, the thing that you can hope from it. When something bad happens, it happened. You just hope things are better for the next time.
Yeah. So, as I said, this was the worst civilian loss of life until 1898. In 1898, we had the wreck of La Bourguignon, I think is how you say it, or the Bourgogne. I think it's the Bourgogne, the La Bourgogne. And that was 562 people of the 725 people on board died. So it was less people on board, but the ratio of death was higher.
Yeah.
This was also not a White Star Line. This was a CGT, or a Compagnie Générale Transatlantique, which is a French cruise liner.
Okay.
The title would then again be taken by another ship in 1912, but we'll get there.
Oh, we'll get there.
We'll get there. So recovery of the dead was not an easy task, because of course when you have these sort of tragedies and you want to recover as many bodies as possible, you want to take them home, you want to bury them, you want to give them a burial, you want to mourn. And if you don't have something to mourn like that, it is just devastating.
It really is. I can't imagine being told, like, hey, like you said, we went out and we saved these people, but your loved one was just left out at sea. That's not something that's not news you want to have to deliver. Everyone deserves dignity in death.
Yeah, 100%. And so, the rescue teams put a lot of emphasis on trying to salvage and rescue as many dead bodies as they could.
That's very noble of them, and I'm happy that they were able to do that.
I think that's a consistent as well. Every tragedy we have from here on out, the recovery efforts for the deceased have been very, very, very on point. Good. So, recovery took weeks due to just the astronomical number of casualties. And they were actually paying independent divers, very, very handsomely, to swim out to the wreck and try and pull out as many bodies as they could. Wow.
That's a noble, like you said, definitely a hard thing. Diving in general is such a scary thing, and to go try to pull up anything you're putting your own life in danger. So.
Oh yeah, that's quite literally, it's dead weight.
Yeah.
And it's a one hole of you that you've got to try and get through a narrow passage and make sure that you both make it out. Otherwise, you're just adding another count.
Yeah, not just that, but it's also something that you have to be mentally ready to go do. You were literally going and grabbing a dead body. You have to be ready to do that. So, just huge kudos to the divers that took it upon themselves, that and just went and did that for helping the family. That's awesome.
Yeah. Huge shout out to these divers. Additional diving companies were sent out to try and recover cargo, but those efforts were not as necessary as the body recovery.
Gotcha.
All in all, 349 bodies were recovered, which is an impressive number considering what the ship had gone through. As a weird piece of history, a little fact for you, one crew member that was recovered, one of the 10 that perished, was actually revealed to be a woman in disguise.
That is really interesting. Wow.
Yes. So this crew member was known only as Bill, and they were actually a crew favorite and could hold their booze and tobacco as good as any of the other crew members.
That is pretty cool, actually. Like you said, I hate sad way to go, but man, what a badass lady. I love Bill. Bill the lady.
Bill. I mean, most of the crew had no idea Bill was a woman.
Yeah.
And whatever their life they were going through at the time, whatever life they were living, they were a huge favorite, and most of the surviving crew were devastated when they heard that Bill didn't make it.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, whether it was a woman that was her ticket to see the world, whether that was someone who, was transitioning and that was just their way to do it at the time, who knows? Yeah. But that's just really cool that, I don't know.
Shout out to you, Bill.
Yeah, I don't know. I really think that is just so cool.
Yeah, I thought that was it was a fact I had to include.
Man, love it.
Shout out to Bill.
Yeah.
So, with every wreck, there are always inquiries. What the heck happened? Why did this happen? Whose fault was it that this happened? Because there's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of lives at stake. There's just, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
So the first inquiry was held by the Canadian government, and they were highly critical of Captain Williams. The main factor for that was the fact that he decided to sleep on approach. but also because he failed to take frequent soundings. So he wasn't checking his surroundings, and he was asleep at the time.
Yeah.
Despite this, Captain Williams did not have his master's certificate rescinded. I assume that's your captain diploma.
Yeah.
That was not taken away from him. Instead, because of his efforts during the rescue, because he did do the damn thing, he was only suspended 2 years. So he lost his sailing privileges for 2 years and then was reinstated.
Okay.
The White Star Line also got an earful for allegedly not supplying enough coal to their ships, which the company denied fiercely. They're like, there is plenty of coal on those ships. I don't know what you were talking about.
Yeah. No, check the receipts. We totally supplied you with tons of coal.
That ship stocked. The crew itself was accused of serious navigation errors because how did they get 12 miles off course and not figure out that they were 12 miles off course?
Yeah.
The second inquiry that was held was by the British Board of Trade, which is basically all things boats. They own everything. They own all boats.
Okay.
All boat legislation is held by the British Board of Trade. They'll come back later. They're starring roles in just so many of these.
Okay.
They also came to the same conclusion about the coal initially. They were like, how dare you not stock your ships with enough coal? And White Star Line was like, I do not know what you were talking about. I do not know what you were saying. White Star Line actually appealed this ruling, and it was later proven that the Atlantic did have enough coal, and it was just being underreported.
You should talk to your crew.
Yes, they actually had about 150 to 160 tons of coal remaining.
Oh my gosh.
And that actually would have gotten them to New York with coal to spare. So
that
yes.
really has to be, especially like as the captain who made that call. And like you feel so good about like saving everyone. You thought you did everything that you could. You're like, I made this call because we just had to do it. And then they're just like, no, you didn't. You had plenty of coal. And you're just like, oh, whoopsie, I guess.
You just, like, we just didn't communicate.
I go take my 2-year timeout now. Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, slap on the wrist. How dare you? Thank you for saving all those people. See you in 2 years.
God, wild.
Yeah. So the Atlantic was also the first steamer ship to be wrecked for the White Star Line. So they were like, they had the Tayleur, which was a clipper ship. This was their first, like, this is the bigger, the better initiative. This was their first huge loss in the steam division.
Okay.
So naturally, the SS Atlantic disaster cost the White Star Line severely.
Yeah.
Not only for cargo, for passengers, for loss of life, for insurance, for payouts, everything. And they lost one of their revenue ships. So, like, it was just...
Well, and reputation, too. People are just kind of like, you want to go on one of their ships? That their ship sink, okay?
Yeah, like that's two we're two right now. We're not looking so hot. This was also the biggest. I think this was the first major disaster that they had under new management. So the Tayleur was the old version of the White Star Line before they declared bankruptcy. It was owned by Wilson and Pilkington. Sold the ship. This was Ismay's first major disaster.
Man, it's just the curse of the White Star, you know.
It's the curse of the White Star. Now we're getting somewhere. Hold on, hold your horses. Put that in your hat. Anyway. White Star Line removed all advertising for the Atlantic, which of course makes sense. The ship no longer exists. And they also funded a lot of the Atlantic memorials. So there's a couple in Canada for the Atlantic. I believe there's one in Liverpool as well. They also paid for all the maintenance of the memorials as well. So they kept the upkeep and made sure that they were still, they were well taken care of and that the lives that were lost were honored properly.
Good. That's the least they can do.
It's the least that they can do. Come on, White Star Line.
Yeah.
Loss of the business and trust to the brand caused the line to sell 2 of their beloved steamship, the Tropic and the Asiatic, just to stay afloat. Har har.
Man.
So yeah, so now we've not only have we lost 1 ship in a major disaster, we had to sell off 2 ships just to financially recover.
Just to stay afloat. Har har.
Just to stay afloat. Har har.
Pun definitely intended.
There are so many boat puns littered through this, and I call attention to some and I don't call attention to others. And if you catch them all, I'm so proud of you. That said, reeling but determined to keep their eyes on the future, that is the White Star Line way, they began expanding their routes once more. So they put all of the oceanic lines back onto the North Atlantic trade. They learned their lessons from the Atlantic, the Oceanic, the Adriatic. They're all going. New orders funneled into Harland de Wolff, ordering 2 brand new, much larger Oceanic-class ships in 1873. And these made the Oceanic and the Atlantic look like babies. So these new ships were 455 feet long, or 139 meters, and they were 45 feet wide, or 14 meters. So they're all kind of going, huh, They're expanding.
They're getting bigger.
They're getting bigger. So the top speed of these ships was 15 knots, which is 17 miles per hour. So it was a whole mile per hour faster.
That's a lot, okay.
Yeah, it is. I 100% agree. I've been on ships. I know how fast they go.
Yeah, that could save you like a whole day.
You can. You also keep in mind of the size of these things. So go that size, going that speed, like, I'm good.
Yeah, we've already seen the damage it can do going slower than that. Imagine the damage it can do a mile an hour faster.
I mean, put that in your hat.
Boop.
So yeah, it can go 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers an hour if you're counting that way. So these new ships increased passenger capacity too. They could now carry nearly 2,000 people in total.
Oh my gosh.
So these two new ships were the SS Britannic and the SS Germanic. And they hit the water in 1874.
Man, carrying all those new passengers. Sorry.
It's so weird that you said that. So the original SS Oceanic, the Atlantic's older sister, the eldest in the Oceanic line, was now deemed surplus. She was like, she's getting old, she's getting a little wobbly, she's not quite the ship that she used to be.
Yeah.
People are losing their faith in the older models of the Oceanic line with the Atlantic. So they sold the SS Oceanic to the Occidental and Oriental Shipping Company, where it had a very successful run until 1895.
Okay.
Now, these two new ships, Shifskas, they were fast, they were reliable, and they were kind of what the White Star Line needed to kind of reintroduce trust back into the brand. People were seeing these new ships.
Yeah, but I feel like I've heard this before. Okay, stop trying to sell me on your new ship, White Star Line.
What can I say? It seems to work, though.
That's what you told me last time, that it was faster, it was better, and that there was going to be twice the amount of jugglers, and I fell for it.
Yeah, but wait, this one has 3 times the amount of jugglers. Like, you do not even understand how many jugglers we've got going right now. And we've got a guy playing the violin.
Okay, well, now you have my attention.
There we go. They were luxurious. They were fast. They were reliable. People were like, you know what, White Star Line, we judged you too hastily. The Atlantic was an accident. It was tragic. But these two ships, though, it's real nice.
Real nice.
It's real nice. In fact, these ships were so nice that they actually both held records for fastest eastbound and westbound ships in 1875 through 1877. They were real fucking fast.
Those are some good records to hold. I'm sure they were advertising the wazoo out of that. They were just like, hey, guess what? Guess who the fastest ship in the West? This guy right here.
But that was a big deal at the time. If you were fast, if you could carry more passengers, and if you were deemed the most luxurious ship, people would pay top dollar to get there faster and in better quality. Like, that was the way to do it.
Yeah,
and Cunard was fucking shook us. They were like, what?
The Saluna class. Come on, they can't keep up with that.
No, they absolutely cannot. Like, Cunard is looking at these two new ships and they're like, the fuck? Huh? Ships don't come that big. And White Star Line was like, yeah, they do, baby. See you in our dust.
They're going a whole mile an hour faster, and they're like, eat our nautical dust. And they're just like slowly, little by little, inching past.
But hey, that was inches by inches. Like, they got there faster. They got the nicer piers. They got the better passengers.
Man, I know what ship I'd want to be on.
It pays for itself. It pays for itself.
Yeah.
So Cunard shook us, and they're like, so sorry that we've been like mocking you for the last 20 odd years. So sorry. We see that you have the fastest ships in the world, for now.
Ooh.
So Cunard and White Star Line came to a deal agreement.
Oh.
Because neither of them, if you remember, have their postal certificates. They both lost them long ago, way back in the way zone. And they weren't making enough money to pay for it.
Yeah.
But they're like, hey, if we work together with your fastest ships and our better ships, we could both have a postal agreement. We could share it. We could pay for it together. And like, our fleets aren't that big, so like, we'll give it to the nice ships, and then we can get post and we'll work together.
Why does this sounds like a trap? This sounds not like a good idea.
Well, White Star Line was like, hey, you know how much prestige comes with the RMS in front of your ship line? Right now we've just got the SS, which just really stands for screw steamer, which isn't great.
Yeah.
We would kind of like that RMS back because Royal Mail Ship sounds fucking badass.
Yeah, Royal Mail Ship. You tell him I'm getting on anything that has RMS in front of it. You don't even have to tell me what company it was. It's an RMS. Yeah.
It's an RMS. Yeah, pretty much. And that was kind of the philosophy back then. If you had an RMS, it was considered a luxury liner. It could pay for the postal certificates. It was carrying post. It was trusted enough to carry post because that's a big deal as well.
Yeah, the Royals trust it.
And the Royals trusted.
Yeah.
So White Star Line and Cunard come to this deal and they both agree to share a postal arrangement.
Wow.
So 20 years after losing it, White Star Line's back to begin an RMS, baby.
Wow.
Over the next 20 years, White Star Line focused on business. And I mean business. They were just businessing all over the shop. They were like, we're building faster ships, we're building bigger ships, we're building like better ships. The fucking Cunard, we're sharing a postal agreement, but fuck him, am I right? Fuck Cunard.
This is just a ploy in the long run. They thought they're playing us, we're playing them. We're gonna outplay the players.
You gotta work with your enemies, and you'll watch them sink to the bottom of the ocean.
It's true. You know what they say? Keep your enemies close.
And your bitter rivals for eternal lifetime closer.
Even closer.
So, White Star Line is building bigger, better, faster ships. The older, not as fast, kind of deteriorating over time ships that don't have RMS in front of them are slowly being sold off. So, the smaller, less profitable line ships, they're getting sold to the Occidental and Oriental Steamship Company, which they had a partnership with now with Ismay. So basically, any older ships were going over there. They could focus on Harland and Wolff's brand new ships and then have them debut on the North Atlantic because it was still profitable, baby. So White Star Line, with partnership with this other company, they began sailing the Pacific Ocean routes as well. So now they're going the other way. They also partnered with a new line, the Shaw, Savile and Albion line in 1882. And they were like, you know what, New Zealand, it's been a while. We're going to come back. We're coming back to New Zealand with our better ships, with our RMSs. We're going to take mail. That's profitable. If you can get mail from the UK to New Zealand, you're good.
They didn't even have a gold rush.
They did not have a gold rush. They just had post.
Yeah.
White Star Line, along with its partners, they decided that they were going to diversify their cargo.
Ooh.
You know, passengers and, like, mail, that's fine. But you know what real money's in?
What?
Cattle. We're going to start transporting live cattle.
But like on the ships with the people, because that smelled real bad.
They had specific ships designed for this.
Oh, thank God.
In 1892, Harland and Wolff pumped out two more sister ships, the SS Bourke and the SS Naronic. Now, these two ships were exclusively cargo ships. These were not designed to be passenger ships in any capacity. They were only designed to transport large amounts of cattle.
Okay.
So their passenger quantity was only 15 passengers and 60 crew. And those 15 passengers are basically just to make sure that the cows didn't die.
Yeah, I was like, wow, who wants to be on this boat other than...
Farmers. They were farmers, basically.
Okay.
Just watching, making sure, they were like deliverymen, making sure that their transport was going well, that the animals were cared for. And then they would either trade them off or take them to the farms or wherever they needed to go. But that wasn't White Star Line's problem.
Yeah.
So these two sister ships, the SS Bourke and the SS Naronic, they were about 470 feet long, which is 143 meters long, and about 53 feet wide, or 16 meters. So these are even larger than their very large passenger ships.
Wow.
Yeah, their only thing that they were designed to do, hold cows. That's all they were going to do.
I mean, like you said, even if they carry the same amount of passengers, like they have twice the amount of legs, takes up twice the amount of room.
That's still lives on board. On board.
It's crazy.
At the time of entry into service, they were considered the largest cargo ships in operation. So these were designed for the North Atlantic route, and so they were basically just running cargo from Liverpool to New York, and New York to Liverpool. It was easy cash grab. Take your cows from England, take them to New York. Take your cows from New York, bring them to England.
Yeah, just shuttle those cows, would you?
Yes. So the SS Naronic was launched on the 26th of May, 1892, and with her maiden voyage being on the 15th of July, 1892. I don't even know if I want to call this a maiden voyage because it's just cows, but I guess that there were 15 passengers on board, so I guess it counts.
Yeah, there's still lives on board. Even you just said it.
There's still lives on board. My bad. I take everything back. It's a maiden voyage. It's full-fledged.
Exactly.
The SS Bourke was launched on the 28th of June, 1892, and her maiden voyage was on the 26th of August, and it was a real maiden voyage.
It was a real maiden voyage. Stop disrespecting these cows.
I'm sorry. So now, as you can imagine, there's a reason I'm hyper-focusing on these ships.
And the lives on board.
And the lives on board, and I'm not doing that for no reason. We're going to gear up and talk about White Star Line's third disaster, or rather what it's called, its third incident. So this one's a little different, but this is also where I'm going to call part 1 of our complete history of the Titanic.
But I want to know what happens to the cows.
You're immediately going to find out what happens to the cows.
Thank God.
Well, you are, our dear lovely listener. Next episode's coming out next week. But yeah, this is the intro. This is the beginning of my very complete, very abridged history of the White Star Line and the Titanic. It's a lot of context, and we're not even at the Titanic. We're still 40 years off.
We haven't even talked about the Titanic yet. We've talked about all her sister ships.
We're talking about all of her older sisters, and like, man,
all the things they didn't actually learn. They said they learned, but they didn't. I was going to ask you at the end of this. I'm like, so what did they learn? Because I haven't actually seen anything they learned other than, like, I guess their compasses worked a little bit on the other one. But they still weren't looking. They still had too many things that just went wrong. They just had no resources for when they actually did, like, crash. Like, they're like, oh, cool, we have ships, but they're like little, like, what are the little ships that you take when the big ship is dead?
What? Lifeboats?
Lifeboats, thank you. Edit that out. Edit that out.
Oh, never.
I'm like, ships is the wrong word, but I can't think of the word boat, even though we said it so many times.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so to answer your question, it's a difficult one because, like, White Star Line, their whole thing was like, we are inventing the future, which means that they're adding technology that's never been tested, we don't know if it's going to work.
Oh my gosh.
So a lot of it is like, here's something brand new, and we're going to run it into the ground until it doesn't work anymore. And let's hope that when it doesn't work anymore, it's not because it's smashed into a continent. And both of these crashes have been, that land wasn't supposed to be there, and now it is. So, it's the curse of innovation, I think. It comes with, we've made something new, and we're not quite sure what's going on, and just taking things for granted and not practicing due diligence, it's going to cost you.
Man, yeah. Speaking of practicing, like, you know how, like, doctors have to say they're practicing medicine because, like, no one's actually just doing medicine. No one has it fully figured out yet. How are these people allowed to say that they're sailing? They should say that they're practicing sailing. Every single one of them.
They're practicing sailing. Yes, we are absolutely. Every innovation. We're practicing science. We're not sciencing. We are practicing science.
We're all practicing. No one's got this shit figured out. Everyone needs to that disclaimer of just like, hey, I might say I'm an expert. I'm the most expert of all the other idiots.
I'm the most practiced. It's pretty. That's all it means.
Yeah.
Expert just means I'm very well practiced.
I'm very well practiced, but we're all still practicing.
Yes, we're all we're just practicing on this big blue earth of ours.
Jeez.
So that was part 1 of our complete history of the Titanic and our abridged history of the White Star Line. Stick with it, guys. It's just going to get weirder and wilder from here. That was like baby's intro into the ocean. It's just going to get weirder. It's just going to get wilder, and we're still 40 years out.
Oh, I am so here for it, ma'am. Well, thank you for getting us started on this journey, and I am so excited to continue it in part 2 with you.
Yes, it's gonna be a wild ride. It's 100% gonna be a wild ride. Well, ma'am, while I ponder how I'm going to introduce us into our part 2, where can these lovely listeners find us?
You can find us on Instagram and YouTube at Spookery Podcast.
You can indeed. You can also send us a Gmail at spookerypodcast@gmail.com, where you can send me all of your boat conspiracy theories. Did you know about the Titanic conspiracy theory? Alana doesn't.
No, I didn't.
Let me know.
I know. Is this like a widely known one? I'm really curious. And
I don't think so. I think I just got lucky because I'm very plugged into like the boat community. Like I'm very like with the ships. You know, I speak ship.
That's fair. Yeah, you do.
So
you knew starboard and the other one.
Yeah, port. I do.
I'm like the 4-letter one.
You've got it. That's it. I do. I think it's because I'm more attuned with ships and ship life that I think this one stuck out to me. You might have found that you have heard of it, and maybe as we get closer and closer to the several conspiracy theories we're going to be covering, maybe one of them will ring a bell. I'm amazed you. I think there's one that you're going to pick up on pretty quickly, but maybe I'm just being overly presumptuous.
I also alluded to the fact that I knew which conspiracy theory you were picking in general, so I might just have you fooled.
Or maybe you know exactly what we're talking about, or maybe you don't know anything. Maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I'm really hoping that a conspiracy theory will present itself, and I just really wanted to talk about the Titanic for several parts. Who knows? We'll find out next week.
We'll find out next week on Spookery Podcast.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening to our part 1.
Yeah, on our maiden voyage.
On our maiden voyage of the Titanic. On my maiden voyage of conspiracy theories.
About the Titanic.
About the Titanic. Well, thank you guys. Until next time.
Stay spooky, everyone.
And stay away from White Star Line ships. Just stay away from them.
Just stay away from them. Just in case. Until we know more, until a future episode, until we have a conclusion. Stay away.
Yeah. Stay away. Sail safe, everybody. Sail safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. What's that song? Like, let's go.
There's a lot of songs like that.
No, Allan, what's the specific one I'm thinking about that I can't remember if you know this? No.
Let's go.
Let's go. It's got like 2 claps.
I don't know. What's the song?
I don't know. I'm asking seriously. Why don't you know what I'm thinking about?
I wish I did. Sing it. Like, sing the beat.
That's just the intro. It's just like, da, 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 let's go. And it's got, that's it. That's all I know. Why don't you know this?
I wish I did. One day I'm gonna find this song. Oh my God.
I feel like it's got a guitar in it, maybe.
It's probably at least one guitar, maybe
at
two.
least one guitar, maybe 2. At least a drum kit, I think, as well.
Probably. There's
Yeah.
a drum kit. If
And
it's not being played, it's still in the room.
Yes, 100%. And there's at least one method of bass.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, any wind instruments?
No.
No wind instruments.
No windows.
No. No windows.
I don't know why I said it that way. I don't know why I said it that way.
The slap happiness kicking in already.
We're only on
it's gonna
part
get
1, baby.
bad.
We gotta do all of this again, but faster.
Oh my gosh, but faster.
Anyway, there were no windows.
There was no windows. And no doors.
And no doors. Which offers this chilling challenge to find
a way out.
Of course, there's always my way.
I love you so much.